Welcome to Fantasy Sports Daily, powered by FantasyGuru.com. Monday through Friday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 a.m. Pacific. Ray Flowers breaks it all down for you from a fantasy sports perspective. Morning, everyone. Ray Flowers of FantasyGuru.com coming in hot, but I wanted to start out slow because normally I'm yelling and screaming at the start of the show. Question for those of you that are in the chat room. It's been thinking about that. Any of you going to be watching the show if we do it on Thanksgiving? I'm just curious because I am thinking I might go to the beach with my dog in the morning. I'm putting it out there. We've already talked about doing the show, putting it out there. You let me know in the chat what your thoughts are. I'm Ray Flowers of FantasyGuru.com. Maybe you have no idea what I'm talking about because this is the first time you're here. If it is, welcome. You can find me over at FG. You can find us here every day, Monday through Friday at 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time here for Fantasy Sports Daily. We go about an hour each day, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We have a guest on. Today it'll be Armando Marsal. He's always on Tuesdays. Mondays is the only day we have a solo host. That's me. I just ramble on about all the Sunday game action. So there we go. So that's how we do it here at FG. Also at FantasyGuru.com, we have another show. An hour from now, an hour after the show ends, actually. So from 12 to 1, you're here with us, hopefully, on the free show. From 2 to 5 p.m. Eastern on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio, hopefully you're with Jeff Mans. That show, obviously, is a paid show. It's on SiriusXM, but it's Monday through Friday. 1 hour after this show ends, I'm with Jeff every Wednesday there. Yeah. Oh, look at this. Everyone's asking. Yeah, go to the beach. We used to do that with our dogs on the holidays. Yeah, okay. Enjoy the holiday with your family. Okay. Getting some positive help here. Probably not, but okay. All right. So maybe we'll do this. We'll see what happens. I'll talk to my significant other and see. Maybe we'll make it happen. I'll obviously update everybody. Maybe I'll still do something. There's a way to post things on YouTube. I can do something late. We'll figure it out. We'll try to get something up here. Might change things. I really appreciate everyone saying, "Hey, man, you know what I would." Gavin, too. I would watch Take the Op You Deserve. I appreciate all of you. Thank you so much. That's really nice. And that's one thing about all this season, being thankful and everything. I'm thankful for all of you. We've talked about it a lot. I mention it, I feel frequently, but maybe not enough. I do appreciate everybody. A lot of you are here every single day. I appreciate you taking the time and effort to be part of the crew here. I appreciate the positivity that we see in the chat room every single day. We talk about that all the time. Thank you. Ray Flowers. Follow me at the Ray Flowers on social medias. Find me here Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. I almost added a Saturday. 4 days a week I'm here. That fifth day on Wednesday, then with Jeff Mans on his Elite Sports Show on SiriusXM. There are many ways to watch the show as you're learning. If you're listening and you're wondering what the hell's going on, Ray's, this is a podcast. Yeah, you can click Elite Plus tab at the top of the page at FG for the podcast. Find all the old episodes stored there. You can also type in Fantasy Sports Daily wherever you enjoy podcasts. 3 places to watch the show live or on demand. And obviously, if you're in this spot with us, you can leave comments and questions as we're already have hit in the first 5 minutes of the show today. It's youtube.com/@ElitePlusNetwork, Facebook.com/FantasyGuruHQ, and Twitter X @FantasyGuruSite. So those 3 places, watch live on demand, leave comments, questions, all that kind of good stuff throughout the show. All right, what are we talking about today? Where is the right one? There's the right one. Let's throw it up on the screen. That's what we're doing today. We're going to review Monday Night Football. And boy, there were some turnovers last night. There was some spotty quarterback play last night. There was some poor play last night. It wasn't necessarily a barn burner of an effort. Yeah, we'll talk about it. We'll also talk about some early looks at the waiver wire. I feel a little scattered this morning. Not really sure why. I didn't drink last night. Didn't stay up late last night. Maybe just because I got a lot of things going on. It's that time of year, right? Everyone's got that. Enjoy your family time. Enjoy your friends. Thank you for all the kind words, as I said. Everyone do the same thing, right? Spend some time with loved ones, all that kind of good stuff. And if you can't spend time with loved ones, if it's just you by yourself, that's okay too. Have a good time. Don't feel bad. Don't feel sad. Head over to the chat room at fantasyguru.com. I'm sure there'll be tons of folks in there all day long, chopping it up, talking football. We'll have the 3 games on. We're here for you. If you need some companionship on the holidays, check us out over at fantasyguru.com. We'll talk the waiver wire again to get back to it. A lot of running back situations to go through, wide receiver situations, a couple of tight end spots. It's early in the week, as we say all the time here when we do this. That's why it's called the early look at the waiver wire. Joe Burrow is likely to return this week, by the way. Everyone's all excited about Cam Ward and the growth he showed. Okay. I'm still looking here to see no real big updates, but we'll go through what we've got right now in terms of what's available on the waiver wire. And then about 25 minutes, it's a Tuesday, as I noted, we'll talk to Armando Marsal. You can find his podcast, Mind of Marsal, if you click that Elite Plus tab at the top of the page. It's also stored there. We'll talk to him about some storylines. What's going on with Lamar Jackson? What about the Vikings offense? J.J. McCarthy? Ugh. The Browns offense with Shedeur Sanders at quarterback. Chargers running back scenario. Bears running back scenario. Bills wide receiver. Saquon Barkley. We'll talk about all these things here in a bit with Armando Marsal. All right, let's start talking some Monday Night Football. The Niners, as expected, when the football game moved 8-4. Panthers are still 6-6, technically in the playoff hunt. They're just not a very good team. We've talked about that on the show. They're just not a very good team. So we'll see if they're able to pull things off and make it to the playoffs, the promised land in the end. I think what we saw last night, though, was a driving home of the idea that follows here. The Niners are a moderate defensive team at best. They're just not, I just started work on my weekly matchup article. For those of you that don't know what that is, check that out over at fantasyguru.com. 10, 11, 12, 13,000 words, charts, tables, all the matchups for the week. DVOA, or no look at DVOA, said the Niners have the 23rd best defense. They're not a very good defense, right? And so you would have think that, hey, Carolina, I know they're traveling, but they're going to have some success. They didn't have any success. And for all those people that were chasing the 448-yard effort for Bryce Young this week, sorry. We tried to warn you about this. Bryce Young has thrown for 200 yards, 200 yards 2 times this season. Didn't do it last night. 200 yards twice. One of his picks was mind-numbingly bad. The other one was just bad. He's just a dude. And, it's amazing they're 6-6. Good for them. It's great that they have playoff aspirations, but if they make the playoffs, they're losing the first week of the playoffs 100%. Like, they have no chance at the playoffs. No, zero, no chance, none. And, when you watch an offense that is this bad, and this is not a one-off. This is it's kind of like the Vikings. It's just this bad. At least the Vikings have some, pretty impressive skill players. Really don't here with the Panthers. You just got to wonder, where's this organization going? Bryce Young is not the answer, right? If you want to be Geno Smith and be the Seahawks and go 10-7 and make the playoffs and lose the first game every year, Bryce Young's your guy. If you ever want to win any, Bryce Young's he's just not it. And again, this is, it's a struggle for him to throw for 200 yards, only twice all season long. He did throw a touchdown pass to Tedrow McMillan. Good for McMillan. McMillan continues to be the only, I guess Dowdle was, but he's no longer anymore. Ted McMillan's the only guy that really steps forward on a weekly basis. Yesterday, he didn't do anything. 2 catches, nothing, but he got in the end zone. So he got you something there. Well on his way to an 80-catch, 1,000-yard season as a rookie. That's damn impressive. So good for him. Rico Dowdle led the team with 4 catches. Rico Dowdle led the team with 36 yards. This is terrible. Rico Dowdle, who was averaging 130 yards over like a 5-week period of time on the ground, he can't run for 55 yards anymore. The last 3 weeks, he's under 55 yards each time, if I'm not mistaken. So ran for 38 yards last night. Chuba Hubbard's caught 4 passes, didn't do anything. The Panthers stink. They just stink. And the run of success for Rico Dowdle, he's been beat up. We've talked about it on this show. We've talked about it on Sirius XM. He just doesn't quite have the burst he used to have earlier in the year, probably because of injury. Probably because of being worn down a little bit. He had a ton of work there too. But the bottom line is Dowdle's, he's a guy you start, but Tedrow McMillan's a guy you start, but you don't start Bryce Young, and there's no one else in this offense even worth talking about. On the Niners side of things, I mean, they won a game. They moved 8-4. They're firmly establishing themselves as in the hunt in the NFC. But Christian McCaffrey is going to die before they get to the playoffs, or die in the playoffs, and that's going to be it for the Niners. 31 touches last night. Like, I get it. You got to win a football game. But to beat the Panthers at home, you got to give the ball 31 times to Christian McCaffrey. It's just bananas. It's just bananas. If you got McCaffrey, you're loving life. He's just crushing every week. I mean, he gives you 10, 12, 14 points every week as a pass catcher. Doesn't have to do anything on the ground. He's giving you 14 points. Like, it's just fantastic production. Note that he averaged 3.7 yards a carry. Note that Brian Robinson actually averaged a full yard more per carry this year than Christian McCaffrey. Note that Christian McCaffrey is one of the least efficient running backs in all of football. But he catches 6-7 passes every week, so who cares? He's a phenomenal fantasy asset, but yeah, he will die. 31 touches in a game against the Panthers. Come on, man. Like, that should have been a game where the Niners gave the ball 17 times to McCaffrey and saved him a little bit. They went over 30. It's something to keep an eye on. Ricky Pearsall returns. Ricky Pearsall has played 2 games now with Brock Purdy, and he's caught 3 balls for 6 yards. He almost had that touchdown on that spotty pass that Purdy threw because it was an end zone look if you didn't see it. But Ricky Pearsall, 3 catches for 6 yards in 2 games. This is just pathetic. Pathetic. He's run 54 routes, something like that in 2 games, 3 catches. We heard the news from Brandon Ayuk, and this is why you don't draft injured players. This is why you don't trade for injured players. It's starting to sound an awful lot like Brandon Ayuk will not play a single snap this season because the off-the-field issues, not showing up, not doing the right things, Niners voiding his contract next year, all that. You probably all heard that. But the Niners need Ricky Pearsall, and he should be better, but he's more of the deep threat in this offense at this point in time is Kittle and Jennings and McCaffrey, and that's it. And, when you're throwing the ball 8, 9, 10 times to Kittle, when you're throwing the ball 8, 9, 9 times to CMC, when you're throwing the ball 7, 8 times to Jennings, it's 28 passes right there to those 3 guys. Like, that's pretty through 32 balls last night, right? So there's just not a lot of meat on them bones. So Pearsall right now should be rostered. He's out there all the time. He's the number 2 receiver on this team. But as we've seen through the 2 games with him, the floor is non-existent for him. Kittle, by the way, averaging like 16.6 PPR points since week 8, 3rd at the tight end position in PPR points behind Bowers and McBride. And if you had any concerns about Kittle, he's back. So no worries about Kittle are necessary. So that was a wrap-up of a really bad, boring game. Who cares? But we do it here on Tuesdays on the show every week. Let's talk about the waiver wire. And again, this is too early in the week to have answers here. So we're doing the best we can at this point in time. Remember, I've already answered the, hey, do I drop this running back to grab this running back question? Already answered it this morning. Remember, everybody, grabbing running backs, grabbing players weekly, it's not a strategy. Should Devin Neal be on the waiver wire? No. He's the first guy we'll talk about. If you had Alvin Kamara and you didn't have Devin Neal and he's on the waiver wire, boy, did you blow it. Because we've been saying for weeks now, handcuff your running backs, number 1. And number 2, Kamara's been hurt for weeks. At this point in time, it's unclear whether Alvin Kamara is going to play this week. I'm going to say he doesn't play this week. I think it's going to be Devin Neal and Audric Estime in the backfield for the Saints team. Now, the Saints team is not any good. Their offense stinks. They have nothing. They're not going to put any pressure on the opponent. They're not going to create a scenario where Devin Neal all of a sudden becomes a star. The early rankings over at fantasyguru.com. I'm trying to find out where Neal is. Let's see here. Devin Neal is currently ranked 27th in a matchup with Miami. Miami is not good defensively against the run. So that should be a scenario where there should be some levels of success here. Let's look this up here. Miami's allowed 4 rushing touchdowns in the last 5 games. They're about middle of the pack the last 5 games they've played, or last 6 weeks of the season. That'll be in the article tomorrow, too, over at fantasyguru.com. But it's not a difficult matchup for Neal. But remember, the Saints haven't run the ball effectively. Kamara hasn't run the ball effectively. Like, Kamara's run the ball for 50 yards, twice this year? Let's pull that up real quick. He's been beat up. He's been hurt 3 times this year. 3 times he's run for 50 yards this year. So they've had 3 50-yard rushes all season long. Neal should obviously see the majority of work, though Estime should be involved. There's always a chance that Devin Neal, who caught 5 balls last week, runs for 60 yards, has 50 yards of receiving, and gets in the end zone. Like, he can do 100 scrimmage yards and a touchdown. Would that be a stunner? No. Am I expecting it? No. Because, again, Kamara wasn't doing this. So Neal should be added. He shouldn't be on the waiver wire. He should have been added weeks ago. If he's on the waiver wire, I can't say he's a priority add, though, because this offense just isn't very good. But if you're struggling in week 13 for the running back spot, as Godfrey says, nothing says confidence like starting a Saints running back. So you're telling me there's a chance. Moving on to Chris Rodriguez. Chris Rodriguez clearly seems to be the back in Washington. We're going to get another week of Marcus Mariota at least, as Jayden Daniels tries to come back from his elbow injury. Last time out, we saw Rodriguez, and might have forgotten, it was week 11 against those Dolphins that we just talked about. 15 carries for 79 yards. He's run for 65 yards in 2 of 3 games. He's got 2 touchdowns in 3 games. That's Chris Rodriguez. He is the lead back right now, in my estimation, including most people's estimation. What has the lead back for the Commanders done this year? Not much. So same thing with Neal, right? Like, okay, he's the lead guy. Great. Faced in Denver, not good. With the backup quarterback, not good. So, yeah, Chris Rodriguez, the early rankings over at fantasyguru.com have Chris Rodriguez ranked. Where are you, Chris? 39th. Yeah, difficult matchup there to throw a guy out there for the first time. Trey Benson. DeMarcotta's beat up. Knight is beat up. Carter's not the answer. Is Benson going to play this week? If Benson plays this week, he's the lead guy in this backfield. We've said it all along. They obviously are having success passing the ball. They are struggling running the ball, the Cardinals. Benson shouldn't be on the waiver wire. He should be added. Of these three names we've talked about thus far, Benson to me is the most intriguing, but it's week 13. We're getting, we need him on the field and doing something before it's the fantasy playoffs. And then we're just starting a guy on blind faith because I don't want to be doing that. So this is a really important week for me, in my estimation, for Benson. Get him out there, get him on a little bit of a snap count. Week 14, turn the things over to him. We'll get a sense of what the offense looks like, and then we'll be able to start him in week 15 in the playoffs. That's the hope. We'll see if it plays out that way. Dylan Sampson. Quinshon Judkins was beat up last week. Judkins was beat up. He was in the medical tent a couple of times. He should be okay. We're hearing he's fine. All right. So at this point in time, Sampson, who had that great touchdown acceleration on that drop-off pass that he took 66 yards or whatever it was for the score. Sampson, oddly enough, still is losing third down looks to Ford. It really seems like if Judkins goes down, that Sampson will be the early down back and Ford will be the third down back. I think that's how they'll play it. Bottom line is if you have Judkins and you don't have Sampson, mistake. If you're just going to do I'm going to grab Dylan Sampson off the waiver wire, okay. If Judkins plays, it's very, very unlikely that Sampson carves out any kind of role that leads to any kind of fantasy success. So Sampson really is just a handcuff. He's an intriguing one because he's got we've seen it multiple times this year. He's got burst. He's got juice. But it does seem like Judkins is going to be okay. We'll talk a little bit more about this offense later on with Armando Marsal. Let's talk some wide receivers. With Cincinnati, it appears, as I noted, that Joe Burrow is going to return from the IR this week. Okay. Joe Flacco struggled a little bit the last couple of weeks, but I mean, let's pull it up real quickly here. He's thrown for 2 touchdown passes in 4 of his 6 games with the Bengals. And in those 6 games, he's averaging 270 yards and 2 touchdowns. He's been Joe Burrow. So Joe Burrow coming back doesn't appreciably figure to change the passing attack. Obviously, Jamar Chase is back, which is great. Higgins has got the head injury. He's already been ruled out this week because it's a short week. They played on Thursday. So Burrow returns with only one of his 2 weapons out there, which leads us to Andrei Iosivas. Iosivas has been with his team for a few years now. He's been the wide receiver 3 behind Higgins and Chase. He's stepped up when either one of those guys has been out of the lineup. At times, he's had games this year of 582, 566. Last week, he was 461. He's gone 4 catches for 60 yards in 2 of 3 games. And he's very likely to play all the snaps this week. He does anyway most of the time because they run 11 personnel. But play all the snaps and probably get 7 to 9 targets. So there's another chance that he does another 4-catch, 60-yard thing, and then he's either a 10-point guy or he gets a touchdown and he's a 16-point guy. Iosivas should be at it, I think, in most leagues. Because remember, T. Higgins has had a long history, and this is a head injury, so it's different. But he's had a long history of being in and out of lineups. He's always been that guy. And the fact of the matter is that is he going to be back next week? We don't know. So Iosivas should be added. Not a ceiling play, even with Joe Burrow coming back, but he should be added. I think that would be a smart decision to make. Oh, I just clicked on the wrong thing. There we go. By the way, my face is still there. I know we haven't had any tech problems. Sorry about that, everyone. We haven't seen the vent in a while. Moving on, let's talk Chimere, Dike. And I talked about him on Monday when we discussed the Tennessee situation. And yeah, okay, the offense is improving a little bit. Cam Ward is looking a little bit better. Dike has been a terrific, if you're in a league with kick return yardage, he's been fantastic. Got another touchdown last week on a punt return. And, with Calvin Ridley out, he moves up the pecking order. Last week, Io Manor was out too. So he's the only game in town. They threw the ball more to Helm. They throw the ball to Chig. They throw the ball to Dike. Dike has seen, and here's the thing with him. These are his target totals the last 5 games. 4, 8, 3, 3, 7. So he's gone 4 catches for 40 yards in 3 of 5 games. In the other 2 games, he caught a total of 3 passes for 19 yards. he is not somebody that is going to see consistent work. He's got 12% of the team's targets this season. He's got 12% of the team's air yards this season. His average depth of targets, 7.6 yards, very moderate number. His yards per route run is 1.3. It's a poor number. Is he the number one receiver with this team? He probably has passed Manor. Okay. Is he somebody you can start with any level of confidence? I mean, I know 3 of the last 5 games, 15 PPR points. The other 2 games didn't get to 4. This is an offense that's going to struggle for touchdowns. It's certainly an offense that's going to struggle to put up first downs on a consistent basis. Dike is, again, fine to add. Would I start him with any degree of confidence? I just can't. Facing Jacksonville this week's much better matchup than last week was against Seattle, but still tough to give a full-throated endorsement there. John Metchie. Someone's got to catch the ball for the Jets, right? We talked about that. Adonai Mitchell is the guy we can dream on, the deep threat, the guy that does theoretically George Pickens-y things. Actually, Alec Piercy things, his old teammate. The problem for him, though, is obviously he's had some issues with the handles, and he's not a guy that's moving the chains, right? He's not that guy. Metchie's the guy that they're looking at to move the chains. And Metchie, it's everyone probably remembers this, but I'll just reiterate it. Metchie scored in 2 straight games working with Tyrod Taylor here. 6 catches for 65 yards last week, 3 catches for 45 yards the previous week. Now, it's exciting to get a guy who looks like he's ascending, who scored touchdowns in back-to-back games. But understand, he's averaging 5 targets and 55 yards in those 2 games. So, without the touchdown, he's DK, right? There's not, but on the field a lot, running all the routes, clearly the number one guy, has a decent connection with Taylor, who is a better passer right now than Justin Fields for whatever reason. So yeah, I think Metchie should be added up the waiver wire. Would I start him? I mean, 5 targets, 4.5 catches, 55 yards. I'm not starting him. Like, to me, he's more of a DFS guy as John Metchie, but somebody that needs to be mentioned. He can be added, but he's like that 6th receiver that you don't want to play, if that makes any sense. So don't spend waiver wire priority in there. Kayshon Boutte, Jayden Higgins, I guess, was the guy. I cut his name off. Jayden Higgins, add. I'll make it simple. Add Jayden Higgins, but he's much like John Metchie. He's more usable than John Metchie, but both guys, it's 4 catches for 40 yards, and they need a touchdown. So, Kayshon Boutte. Boutte is a really intriguing player because we have seen him at times all season long pop off. The problem with Boutte, as we saw last week, is that his production is sporadic. And the reason his production is sporadic is because he doesn't get a high volume of targets. His target high since week 1 is 5. He's had 5 targets twice. He's also had games of 1, 3, 3, 2, 1, 2. There's no volume here with Boutte. So if he doesn't get that touchdown, he's doing nothing for you. Now, there was a stretch. He scored 4 touchdowns in 3 games before getting hurt in week 9. Came back last week, played all the snaps, all that kind of stuff, saw 2 targets. Caution with Boutte. I don't like this style of player. Like, I'd feel more confident, crazy as this sounds, going Higgins or Metchie, because Boutte really needs that 30-yard touchdown, or it's just a ghost town of production. But he has his own issues. And we've seen this. There have been games, obviously, where Douglas has popped, Hollins has popped, Diggs has popped, Henry. We know how it goes with the Patriots. Drake May just spreading the ball around as a good quarterback should. Greg Dortch, we talked about him. We talked obviously about Michael Wilson earlier. Wilson was added in every league 2 weeks ago. Dortch was probably added. I looked at his ownership rate. It was under 50%, which I get. I understand that. But Dortch, as we noted yesterday on the show, caught another touchdown. He's now caught 6 balls for 50 yards and a touchdown in 2 consecutive games. Remember, as we discussed also yesterday, that Jacoby Brissett's thrown like 100 passes the last, more than 100 passes. He's thrown 106 passes the last 2 games, or whatever the hell it is. That's insanity. That's impossible, right? So, if Dortch is getting 6 targets, catching 4 of them for 39 yards, same thing. Got to get in the end zone. The numbers the last 2 games look really good, and he clearly is the number 2 wide receiver on this team until Marvin Harrison returns. But be cautious here with Dortch, a little guy, an underneath guy, a guy who's going to need that volume, and that volume's not going to be 45-plus pass attempts every week, despite what we've seen of late from Jacoby Brissett. Darnell Mooney. Mooney. For those of you that don't know why we're singing that, Darnell Mooney hit the prop, scored the touchdown last week. Everyone rejoiced. Ted, Jeff, everyone over at FG. But Mooney didn't do anything. He caught 3 balls. He only had 3 targets, 74 yards and a touchdown. That's the first time in 5 games he's hit 35 yards. It's his first touchdown all season. Though Drake London being out is a hindrance to Mooney, because Mooney's not going to be a guy they want to throw the ball to 9 times a week anyway, right? But they want London to draw that defensive attention to open up the field for Mooney. Mooney's had a nice connection with Kirk Cousins in the past as well. Mooney, maybe he's a little more expensive than he should be because of the touchdown last week, but it's very likely if you're looking at your wide receiver on the waiver wire and you have this group of receivers available, that Mooney's going to be the least attractive player. He's going to be hit or miss because of the style of offense that he plays, this long game and that kind of stuff. But not a bad addition, but another player that, it's a desperation zone if we're starting him at this point. And that's kind of the moral of the story here. We're at a point in the season where a lot of these guys, we're adding players in the waiver wire to keep them from opponents. We're adding players off the waiver wire in case somebody gets hurt. Maybe we're looking at a matchup. We probably shouldn't be doing that at this point with this level of player. So these are really, and Jeff Mans has said this previously, there's no obvious guy this week. I mean, you want it to be Devin Neal, right? But the Saints suck. Their offense is terrible. We just can't, like we talked about earlier, he's ranked 27th at running back. You just can't get overly excited about him because of the situation with his team. A couple of tight ends before we talk to Armando Marsal. Colston Loveland, if you need 9 points a week, he's your man. Maybe I exaggerated. 7 points? No, 9 points. 7 points. 30 points, 10 points, 7 points, 15 points. He's basically catching 4 balls every week. He's getting you about 50 yards every week. I'll go the 9 points, right? Since week 7, he's averaging 12 PPR points because of that one huge game. Though note, he's had 4 of 6 games in single digits. So let's go with the 9 points. He's fine. He's stable. Komet catches 1 pass a week. The problem with Loveland is there was that one huge game where, the opponents, the Bengals, were out of tackle. He's a floor play. He's not a ceiling play as Colston Loveland. Brenton Strange, it's a little bit more intriguing to me than Colston Loveland. He caught 5 balls in his return, 90 yards in his return from the injury list. Of course, that team, the Jaguars, also has added Jacoby Myers at some point, potentially next game. They welcome back Brian Thomas. So there's, just like with Loveland, there's kind of an artificial ceiling on Strange. How many targets is he really going to get? A great game is probably 6-7 targets. So there's a limit there. I saw Armando Marsal, who we'll talk to in a few seconds here, talking to somebody in the chat room, talking about these tight ends and saying they're all kind of the same, choose your poison kind of thing. Taysom Hill, I'm not a Taysom Hill guy. Never been a Taysom Hill guy. He's not a tight end. I think it's cheating to use him at tight end. He doesn't play tight end. He plays quarterback and running back and wide receiver. He plays everything but tight end. Kamara's out. We saw it last week. We had 10 carries last week for Taysom Hill. So you want to roll those dice? I'm not. You want to do it here in week 13, go for it. And then finally, Colby Parkinson. There is one Ram out of the mix there. Taylor Higbee's been placed on the injured list. Parkinson is now sharing the tight end spot with Allen Ferguson. For some reason, the Rams have gone this route. They do a lot of 13 personnel. But Parkinson has become the pass-catching tight end for this team. Hasn't resulted in anything significant. He has 0 50-yard games, 0. He has 0 5-catch games. But because all Matthew Stafford does is throw touchdowns, he scored a touchdown in 3 straight games. And he's got 4 balls in 2 of those 3 games. So Dart Throw City facing Carolina. Carolina just had the poor time struggles shutting down George Kittle. Not surprising. Parkinson, to me, below these other 2 guys, or the 3 guys, actually. I even put Taysom Hill ahead of him. But he has gotten in the end zone 3 times. They run a lot of 13 personnel. They throw the ball at the goal line. You know the story with the Rams. Okay. It's a Tuesday. It is 12:30 Eastern Standard Time. Maybe it's 12:31 Eastern Standard Time. But we always talk to Armando Marsal on our Tuesdays, and he's kindly agreed to join us yet again today because, well, that's what he does. He shows up for work, and that's the number one trait we talk about all the time at FG. Show up for your job. It's one of the biggest things to do, show up. He shows up all the time. Let's bring him into the show. He's Armando Marsal of FantasyGuru.com. How you doing, Armando?
I'm doing good, Ray. How about yourself?
Doing okay. Yeah, busy week. We're all, doing family things and trying to squish everything in. We got art writing to do. We're all doing the same thing. Working a little extra here, trying to stuff it all in. I have multiple doctor's appointments this week. I don't know how that worked out. Everything's fine. I'm just doing checkup kind of stuff. But get it in before the end of the year, when your insurance pays for it. So I've been busy. Oh, you too. Yeah. How's your wrist? Or your finger? Finger.
It's good. Yeah, it's all right. I just got it wrapped up. So I have a tear, a ligament tear right here in the obviously in the other hand, but right here in between the two knuckles here. So when I hyperextended the pinky, tore some ligaments there, Ray. These ligaments aren't built like they used to be, Ray. They're not built like they used to be.
How long you got to wear the splint?
3 weeks. They had another one. They gave me a cast, but I ended up getting one that's a little bit more practical. You know, like I could take this one on and off a little bit more when I need to wash my hands and things like that. So, yeah.
Right. And a therapy after the fact too?
It depends on how I feel after. Like I'll tell you this: when I take it off now, it hurts so much more than before. I guess you could see it's healing, right? Like so, it's really really bad when I take it off now. So I don't know. He said it depends on how I feel when I after the 3 weeks. So we'll know then.
So you think it's hard typing on a keyboard, guys? It is. You want to do our jobs? Look at this. It's life and limb you're risking. Armando Marsal at fantasyguru.com join us. Well, hope you're okay, Armando. As you said, it sucks getting old. I'm older, so I have even more issues. But let's talk about some issues on the field instead. Lamar Jackson. Speaking of a guy who's hurt, not hurt, I don't know. He doesn't want to practice. He's claimed he's had diarrhea for like 3 years, so he doesn't practice. Now we heard last week they may not practice him on Wednesdays. They're saying he's fine. You watch him play, the offense is very stagnant with the Ravens. Someone heard me say things like this and said, well, do I start Lamar Jackson? I said, well, yeah, you still have to start Lamar Jackson. How do you read the situation with him?
Yeah, you're going to continue to start him. But the one thing that I have noticed is since returning from the injury, he's not rushing. Like the rushing upside isn't there. He's rushed for over 35 yards just once, something he did in his first three or four games that he played before the injury. So for me, I think that's a big takeaway. We're also seeing that they're able to lean on Henry, right? We saw them lean on Henry this past weekend against the Jets. So he's not passing a ton. He's thrown fewer than 30 passes pretty much every game this season, but it's just the efficiency of those passes, the completion rate under 60% the last couple of games. To me, that's another takeaway that you got to take. He just doesn't look right? Like there's something there. He doesn't look comfortable. And I think it goes back to the injury, right? When players come back and they return and they're not 100% and they rely on their legs, but you can't because of the hamstring injuries or the soft tissue injuries. It takes away from how you approach the game. So I think we're seeing that with Lamar Jackson. But like you mentioned, from a fantasy standpoint, you got to continue to roster him each and every week because the last thing you want is for him to have that big game, that big performance with him on your bench because you decided not to start him. So for me, you're going to ride the waves with Lamar Jackson. That's the way I'm approaching it. I know there's some critical weeks coming up, but I prefer going down with my guys and getting cute and see my guy perform at a high level on the bench, and I lose because of that.
What about, there's a question in some circles, right? Does the quarterback make the receiver? Does the receiver make the quarterback? If we look at the Vikings, we know the answer. What is going on here? J.J. McCarthy stinks. And I talked about him yesterday on the show. It's like, look, he's played 6 games. Like, it takes time. Like we were, back in the old days, quarterbacks would sit 1, 2, even 3 years sometimes and learn. It's not the way it is in the NFL anymore. J.J. McCarthy sucks. They're claiming he's injured. He got head injury that no one saw. What are we doing with this Vikings offense? Like you have Justin Jefferson, like I have him. I can't sit him no matter who the quarterback is. But, as we've seen, I'm also getting 10 points a week now.
Yeah, it's a very difficult situation, right? Like for me, the only player I'm starting comfortably, or not comfortably, but the only player I'm willing to start here every week and just kind of continue to roll with the punches is Justin Jefferson, because it's just he is incredibly talented. He's a superstar. At the end of the day, he had I think it was like 30% target share this past weekend. They only attempted 19 passes. Look, McCarthy, at the end of the day, he's looking awful. Like there's no questions. Like there's no way around it. He looks awful. You mentioned it's just 6 NFL games. There are going to be growing pains. The one thing I will say, like if they continue to pull him this back and forth game of pulling in, you're going to mess the kid up. Like we've seen this in the past with other quarterbacks where they have to kind of restart fresh somewhere else because of these kind of situations. You got to, if you're ready to throw him out there, Let them figure it out and just understand that this is a lost season. At the end of the day, I think the Vikings can look and say this is pretty much a lost season when you look at this division anyways. I would, assuming he's, really hurt, yes, you sit him out. But if he's not hurt, you leave him there. With him under center, regardless of who's under center here, it's just really Justin Jefferson. I don't trust TJ Hawkinson. For me, I'm going to take a loss with TJ Hawkinson this season. I had high expectations for him. You look at some of the other players, the backfield, they're kind of splitting the workload there. It's a difficult situation. And when you're playing in negative game scripts, it's tough to trust. Maybe flex ops is no longer, that RB2 option that we were considering. So for me, it's just going to be Jefferson, and that's it really. And my expectations are going to be tempered when it comes to Jefferson.
Armando Marsal of fantasyguru.com. I don't know if I even want to like Shedeur Sanders. It's like it's almost like he tries his hardest to not be liked. I don't know. Whatever he is what he is. But what about the offense now? Because we were told that Gabriel would be the quarterback when he was healthy. We're now told Gabriel's healthy. We're now told Sanders is the quarterback. So I really don't like this. Make a plan, stick to it, that kind of thing. I don't think Sanders went out and wowed anybody. He made one great throw where he rolled out right and threw a 50-yard pass to Bond. Cool. Made a bunch of horrible decisions. They won the football game, not because of him, because it wasn't because of him. He wasn't even on the field as Judkins is taking wildcat snaps for touchdowns. Where are we at with this offense? Because it is now Shedeur Sanders, which I think in theory should help the wide receivers, but we didn't see much of that last week, Armando.
No, I'm not in on this Sanders train. I know he's starting, and I agree with you. The 52-yard pass to Bond was nice. It looked pretty and all that stuff. But you look at this, and 66 of those yards were on a little dump play to Sampson that he took to the house. You look at Sampson's numbers. It was insane. He had a 66-yard touchdown, and he finished with 59 receiving yards.
I had to look at that twice. Yeah.
Yes, I looked at it 3 times, if we're being honest. I was like, wait a minute. I even went back to to make sure
I watched it too. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, wait a minute. Yeah. It's not ideal. This is not a situation I want to be invested in. You look at Judkins, and he averaged 2.9 yards per carry. He wasn't great. The 2 touchdowns saved him. He is getting those opportunities. I'm out. This is not a situation I want to be invested in. I even wrote in the article when someone said it, they pointed out that when you say, I don't trust him yet, that's a nice way of me saying he's not that good. He's not wrong. He's not wrong. He's not completely wrong. So no, I'm not investing in Sanders. I'm not getting him off waivers. I don't feel comfortable about this offense. It's just, I think there is a very low floor and the ceiling is very limited here for any of these players.
Remember, you can go to FG, click the Elite Plus tab at the top of the page to find this show stashed. So you can find all the old episodes of Fantasy Sports Daily. You can also find Armando's show, Mind of Marsal, there as well. Chargers running backs. Let's talk about that for a second here. And again, it's Tuesday morning. It's not fair to ask you this, but the question's already coming in asking about this. People want to drop Kamani Badal. Why? I don't know why you're doing that. People want to start Omarion Hampton. We have no idea if he's going to play this week. Sometimes I think people hear part of the reports, but they don't hear the whole report. It's like he could return in week 13. We don't know for certain if Omarion Hampton's playing this week, right, Armando? So what are we doing with this backfield scenario? What advice are we giving people that have Vidal or those people that are waiting on Hampton?
Let's stop reading headlines only. Let's dive into the actual content. No more headlines, just actual content. Look, we don't know what's going to happen with Hampton this week or not. Even if he plays, what kind of snap share is he going to have? Are they going to limit him? Are they going to get, ease him in? I got a question the other day as well, and I'm going to steer off for 1 second, asking about, if Jacobs plays, can we drop Wilson? My question is why? Why would you drop someone that if the starting running back is out, they're going to get the majority of the workload, whether it's high-end production or not remains to be seen, but that they're going to get the majority of the workload. That goes the same with Vidal. For me, Vidal, just because Omarion Hampton is back doesn't mean you automatically cut him. If you can afford to stash Vidal, he remains a stash, because if Hampton, doesn't get going, if he re-injures himself, if he suffers a setback, you're going to get Vidal getting those opportunities. He's not always going to be productive. There's going to be volatility, but you want to chase those opportunities. And for me, when you look at this backfield going into this weekend, you're hoping Hampton is back. You're hoping that they announce that he's going to get the full workload, and you can comfortably start him as an RB2 kind of this. That's how I would treat him this week. But if he doesn't give it a go, or if they talk about easing in or 50% snap share, 40% snap share, we got to reevaluate the situation and see what, how we approach it based on the news that we're getting and the practice reports. I would be holding Vidal whether Hampton plays this week or not. Like, that's the way I look at it. He's one of those running backs that at this point in the season, I prefer holding a running back like that on my bench versus a wide receiver 5 or even a wide receiver 4 in leagues that you're starting, 2 wide receivers only, because these kind of running backs can be difference makers at the end of the season. Whereas a lot of these wide receivers, you can kind of replace off of waivers. So for me at this point, I'm holding as many running backs as possible, especially when we have that certainty of what's going to happen with their role if the starting running back is out versus, stashing, Rick Pearsall and some of these wide receivers that you can kind of replace off waivers anyways.
Everyone rewind that last 47 seconds that Armando.
Sorry, I had to
No.
because we've gotten a lot of questions on that, and I want some clarity on the thought process behind all of that.
I'm saying rewind the last 47 seconds and listen to what he said, because I agree completely. Like this, it's so strange to me. Like, no matter how many times we say here on the show or write in articles or discuss in Discord, no matter how many times we lay out the idea of don't do this, people do it. Like, Emmanuel Wilson's a perfect example. You got Emmanuel Wilson, whether you handcuffed Jacobs or you randomly grabbed him. You got the guy, you won. He scored 2 touchdowns and had 30 touches. Why on earth would you drop that this week, even if Jacobs is back? Why? To go grab Dylan Sampson and hope that Judkins gets hurt? Like, what are we doing? So right. I agree with everything you just said. So I'm just reiterating, because it's like I don't understand people's mindsets with this stuff. Remember,
if Jacobs goes out, you're out there bidding all of your fab on Wilson the following week. That's the thing. It's like you won, like you said, you won. Yeah. Take your win and just hang out.
1% of leagues, I'm guessing, maybe a little higher, a little lower. Well, I'd say 1% of leagues actually count bench points, so they don't matter. It doesn't matter if your bench guys are scoring 18 points or 1.8 points. It doesn't matter until you put them in your starting lineup. So who cares if Emmanuel Wilson goes back to 9 carries for 36 yards and no value with Jacobs on? Jacobs goes down, you got your guy. What's going on with the Bears? Some guy was arguing on social media yesterday, and he then erased his tweets. So I guess he realized after reading what we all said that maybe he had it wrong. But there is a lot of concern with the Andrei Swift, which I think is fair, because basically before the fumble, if it was a fumble, I'm not even sure if it was actually a fumble. Before the fumble, he had like 65% of the snaps. After the fumble, he had like 35% of the snaps. So basically, Monangai and Swift's roles completely changed. They took over the other snap share after the fake fumble. Is that a 1 week? Is Monangai taken over? Is Swift a disappointment? Do you have no concerns? Talk us through the backfield.
I saw that conversation between you and that. I would call that a troll. That's what I would call it. So I honestly thought about jumping in too, but I'm like, you know what? We're not going to feed the troll. We're not feeding this troll. Ray, I don't think there's an issue here, right? Like, it's a fumble. He was struggling. He was having a bad day in the office. Like, that's kind of what it was. He was having a bad day in the office, and the team made a switch after the fumble, I guess. Like you said, look, I have the numbers here. When you look at Swift this season, he's finished as a top 24 running back in all but 3 games. Okay, he's finished with at least 15 opportunities in all but 2 games this season. The usage is there. Yep. The production is there. Yep. The return on investment has been there because he was not being drafted, in that bucket. So, like you said before, if you have Swift, you already won, right? And he's an every week starter, in my opinion. I don't think that they're going to make a switch all of a sudden. If they wanted to make the switch, they would have done it after Monangai had that huge game and Swift was returning from injury. That's when they would have done the switch. But they clearly have faith in Swift here. I don't think that anything's going to change. I think that they have a luxury in Monangai. I think he remains a great handcuff. He's not someone I'm going to run and start this week by any means. I'm still starting Swift comfortably as my RB2, and I don't think anything's changed. Look, when you look at the numbers, 17.6 opportunities per game on the season. In the last 3 games, Swift is averaging 17.3 opportunities. Nothing has changed. Like, it's just a day that he was having a bad game. He fumbled, and the team made a switch in a competitive game. That's what it was. I don't think that this means Swift is going to hit the bench now. This is only his 2nd fumble in the season. I don't see any. I would not be concerned as a Swift owner whatsoever.
And it's weird because there are some people that are a little nervous about Swift, which I get being a little nervous, but disappointed, I don't get. This happens every year where Jeff Mans has his name player that he calls out, and then people in the Elite Mafia expect the player to win the MVP award. It's like you said, Swift is outpacing his ADP by like 6-7 spots at the running back position. Don't forget that when Monangai ran for 176 yards against the Bengals, I'm pretty sure Swift would have had a huge game too. Pretty sure, guys. Even if he didn't, if he just had his average game, he would then jump from being a top 20 running back to being a top 15 running back. If he just had scored 13 and a half points, his average game or whatever it is, Swift would be a top 15 running back. So, yeah, it's okay. I agree with Armando, too. I'm not concerned right now. Maybe we're both wrong, but I totally agree with Armando the way he reads the situation.
I mean, even if you go back to Minnesota's game, like he had 21 rush attempts. He rushed for 90 yards. He averaged 4.3 yards per carry. Yeah, that he didn't produce at high-end numbers for fancy purposes, but that's an efficient day in the office for a running back. Like, I'm not concerned. I'm really not.
Well, you're going to be concerned about this next question, I think, because I'm concerned about the next question. The Bills. Look, Khalil Shakir is their guy. We know he's their guy. We have seen the good and the bad the last 2 weeks. We saw a minus yardage game. We saw an 8-catch game. Okay. He's going to catch 5 or 6 passes every week. He's fine. The rest of this receiving core is doing nothing. And the concerning thing that I see, Armando, is they all play the same amount of snaps. They all run the same amount of routes. They just roll them through, whether it's Palmer or Shavers or Coleman or they don't know what they've got. They got Elijah Moore, Curtis Samuel floating around. Like, this offense has really not been very good. They've run the ball quite well, the Bills, but their passing attack is just not. Part of that's Josh, and you see it in Josh Allen. He's starting to force things now. He's making mistakes that he wasn't making earlier in the year. Khalil Shakir he is what he is. What about the rest of this receiving core? Is there anyone here that you have confidence in, or are all these guys kind of hands off?
I don't have any confidence in any of these guys. I think there's going to be a lot of week-to-week volatility within this group. I think you could make a case for they're going to go some weeks. They're going to go with Davis, and there's going to be Knox. Knox had 4 targets this past weekend. Palmer had 4 targets. Like, they're spreading the ball around here outside of Shakir. We also see, we've seen James Cook involved in the passing game at times. We see them involve Ty Johnson at times. Like, I feel like they're going to pretty much approach each week based on matchups, and at that week feature the guy. And I think it's going to be very hard to pinpoint here in the direction that they're going to go. This is not a passing game that going into the season we were overly confident in, because it's been kind of their MO here, where they were spreading the ball around besides Shakir. They kind of lean on Shakir. Kincaid was a big factor before the injury, but we've seen them spread the ball, and I think that's going to continue to be the case here. I just don't trust this situation. I feel like there are safer bets out there that you could look at in waivers versus this situation that's highly volatile. And at the end of the day, now a lot of these guys don't have a ton of upside either, right? Like, they don't have a significant ceiling, so it's really not worth the risk here, given how it's being spread out in Buffalo.
This guy was all upside last year. Star ran for 2,000 yards. Saquon Barkley. This year, he's literally not even half the man he was last year, and he ran for 22 yards last week. And there's a report with him. He says he's in a funk right now. Bad funks before. This ain't a funk, Armando. He's not breaking any long runs. They've had some injuries on the offensive line. They've had some inconsistencies with their offense. There's been weeks where they passed it, haven't passed it. They blew a game that they just took the foot off the gas against the Cowboys. Like, there's some issues here despite them potentially being the best team in the NFC. But what are we doing with Barkley? I mean, is it just you got to start him, right? But I mean, it's like there's nothing happening here. Like, thank God he caught 7 passes last week to save his value here, because he is doing nothing nothing is happening on the ground.
Yeah, he's averaged fewer than 3.5 yards per carry in 4 of his last 5 games. Really what saved him in some of these games is his involvement in the passing game, right? Or touchdowns, because outside of that, it's been very tough. This is what happens when you get so much usage the year before, right? This tends to happen. You kind of take a step back. They made a deep run, obviously last season, winning the Super Bowl there. And then now you have issues with the offensive line, the wear and tear. Like, this was bound to happen. And I think that, expectations going into the season were as he could struggle. From a fantasy standpoint, look, you got to continue to start him. At the end of the day, he has finished as a top, 24 running back in all but 3 games this season. So he's giving you at least RB2 production. Is it always pretty? No. Is he relying on, other factors such as touchdowns and, his role, receptions like unlike last year? Yes, but if he's giving you the production, it really doesn't matter how he's getting it. You just have to understand he's not that top 5 running back each and every week that he was last year. And by this time, by this point in the season, you already know that. You just got to continue to roll with the punches here.
Armando Marsal, fantasyguru.com, joins us Tuesdays at 12:30 Eastern Standard Time. We're at that point of the year where you're either feeling good about your playoff prospects or, boy, you're biting your fingernails, right? Or you've given up already. I guess there's some of that too. Hopefully there's none of that. But we can't worry about the name on the back of the jersey. We can't worry about, where we drafted this guy back in June. We got to deal with right now. And I bring that up because Dike Metcalf should be better than he is. On any given game, he could dominate an opponent. He can run through an opponent, around an opponent, over an opponent. He's got 5 catches each of the last 2 games, which in theory makes you pretty excited. He's also averaging like 12 points in those 2 games. It doesn't matter who the quarterback is, Rudolph or Rodgers. They want to throw the ball to the running backs. They want to throw the ball to 87 tight ends. They paid all this money to get it to Dike Metcalf. And even when they get Metcalf the ball, it's a lot of screen stuff, a lot of stuff at the line of scrimmage. Is he a wide receiver 3 at this point? Is he somebody you don't really want to start at this point?
Yeah, you mentioned it. Like, it's the kind of opportunities he's getting is really heavy because the opportunities are actually there. When you look at the numbers, he's had at least 7 targets in 4 of his last 5 games. So the opportunities are there, but it's the kind of opportunities he's getting. Look, you got to view him as I view him as a wide receiver 3/flex option with boomer bust like appeal, right? That's really what it is. That you have to understand that he's gonna either have a huge game or give you, very poor performance, like based on expectations for who he is. And that's just kind of been the receiver he's been this season. And I think in many, many years throughout his career, he's been that boomer bust receiver. So, at this point, it depends on your options, Ray. Like that's how I think, like if you're between him and someone like a Wan'Dale Robinson, at that point, you ask yourself, what do you want? What do you need? Do you want a floor play, a really high floor play? Or do you want a boomer bust with a similar, maybe a little bit higher of a ceiling than Wan'Dale Robinson, but a much, lower floor? You got to make those kind of decisions like on what you want from your player at certain points. For me, I don't trust Metcalf. I've played him in GPP and DFS and things like that, but that's kind of how I view him. A very volatile week-to-week player, very matchup driven, and you're going to hope that he takes one of those screens to the house. That's really how he produces, the high-end production, like by those yards after contact and breaking those big plays and things like that.
Yeah, it's what I'm looking at Dike Metcalf's numbers right now. His average depth of target is down 3 yards. Yeah. It's a massive drop. Mm-hmm. He still has a 40% air yard share for the Steelers. Like they just, that offense, Arthur Smith. Chris Godwin. The season has been kindly a complete disaster. He was back last week. We heard before the game he was going to be on a snap count and that kind of thing. So hopefully no one started him. That's the advice I think most of us were giving. Didn't go out and do anything. Okay. Supposed to be healthier this week. Now we got the concern about the quarterback, Teddy Bridgewater. Godwin, 12-team league, 6 bench spots. Got to be rostered. I don't really care. Is he a starter in any format? Where are we at with Chris Godwin?
So I wouldn't be starting him just yet, but I would hold him if you can, and you have the ability to hold someone like a Godwin here to see how it plays out, right? At this point, you've probably been holding him for a while, a couple of weeks now. He's back. Obviously, he was limited. I think he played just 25 snaps last week, so it wasn't a high snap share. They're expected to, kind of increase that the snaps this week, and obviously the situation that the quarterback is not ideal right now. But I would hold him, kind of see it through, see what happens in the next couple of weeks, see what his role, becomes, and then kind of see what happens there with the quarterback situation as well, right? So like that, I'm taking the wait and see approach. I'm not starting him. I'm not going to plug him in my starting lineup. This is one of those situations where you got to recognize name value versus actual situation and, production, and just kind of leave him on the bench, see it play through. And maybe if he's not getting going in the next week or two, you can make a decision. If there's someone out there that's going to help your roster, going to help your bench, going to give you more solidified bench, you can make the decision then. But as of right now, I'm taking the wait and see approach with Godwin.
Another wide receiver to talk about, Terry McLaurin, whose season, much like Godwin, has been a complete disaster. Worse than Godwin, too, given the expectations. Hasn't played the last 3 games because of a quad injury, a re-aggravation of a quad injury. There was a bye last week. We're hearing positive news that he's got a chance to play this week. It's against Denver, which is not a good matchup. It's going to be with Mariota, the backup quarterback. So we're not starting McLaurin. It's the same thing as Godwin. We're not starting McLaurin. Where, are we hopeful that we're getting anything here? Like if someone's offering him in a trade, if you can still trade, if someone dropped him, is he a must add? Again, Denver this week, you can't be starting them. Then they got a couple of games on the road. Then they face Philadelphia in week 16. What are we doing with the McLaurin?
Yeah, so for me, it's really situational with these kind of players, right? It's always going to be, I'm not going to go actively trade for McLaurin right now. Like if I'm in a league and they're still doing trades, I'm not going out of my way to trade for McLaurin. If I'm trading for McLaurin, I'm giving up a wide receiver 8 or wide receiver 7. Like, okay, sure, I'll do that because I'm not risking or investing anything. Like realistically, you're not going to get that, right? If he's out there on waivers and you have a free ad and you have a bench spot that you can utilize on him and understand that it's kind of going to be the same thing with Chris Godwin where you're taking the wait and see approach, I'm okay with doing that. Am I comfortably starting him this week? No, I don't think I'm going to comfortably start him this week. I'm going to monitor. We have to keep in mind, it's Mariota in the center as well. It's not Jayden Daniels. That's a significant difference, at the quarterback position for them. So for me, I'm good with taking the waiting and see approach. Kind of see it through, see what happens there. I don't necessarily think that it would blow my fab on him. Wouldn't go and give up too much to acquire McLaurin. If he's free, sure. If you have him, hold him, see what happens, see how he looks when he returns, see what these kind of injuries, they tend to be re-aggravated, right? So I would just see it through and wait it out, but not necessarily have to start him this week.
Godfries has a personal question, Armando, for you. Did you hurt yourself high-fiving after the Commanders lost to your Dolphins 16-13 in overtime?
No. This happened. This actually happened in July, and I got taken care of too late. So I was throwing the kids in the pool, and my pinky basically hyperextended all the way back to my palm, to my hand, not the palm, the back of the hand. Okay. Yeah, it wasn't. I thought it was a sprain, to be honest with you. That goes to show you. Don't ask me for injury advice. Like I don't know.
He doesn't even know his own body.
Listen, this is why I tell you guys, don't ask me for the players that are injured. I don't know. I'm not gonna give you the proper diagnosis. I think, all right, that Hampton could play this week. The doctors know whether he can play or not, right? I don't know.
Yes.
So there you go.
Well, 2 guys that are healthy, at least for right now. David P's got a question about them at the wide receiver spot. We're in a PPR setup, Armando. Darnell Mooney, who we talked about earlier on the show, and Christian Watson. If you had to choose one of these two, Mooney or Watson, who would you take? Similar kind of guys in that they're big play threats. Similar in that neither one of them is likely to be commanding 8-9 targets a week. Like they're not target volume guys. Where are we at with Mooney or Watson? I think everyone's going to want to say Watson. Is that the right answer?
Yeah, I kind of lean Watson slightly here. It is very close. Ideally, you can keep both these. Like if you have the roster spot, ideally you could keep both of these. But if I have to choose one, I'm going to go with Watson because I think once, the quarterback situation I prefer in Green Bay, once London returns, like Mooney, he's going to take a step back, right? So we don't know London's situation just yet. But I think we know what's going to happen with Watson moving forward, regardless of, I think we know his role moving forward, regardless of who's in and who's out for Green Bay.
Titan Styles got a question. I guess this is Alec Pierce. Would you drop Alec Pierce to make room for Joe Burrow off the injured reserve list? I have Dak Prescott. Pierce won't touch my lineup unless he starts putting up 15 points a game. Well, number one, 3 of the last 5 games, Pierce has put up 15 points. So that's something with Alec Pierce, number one. Number 2, going back to the question here, and this I was already going over this with other people in Discord today at fantasyguru.com. People added Joe Burrow. Fine move to add Joe Burrow, all this kind of stuff. Are you playing Joe Burrow over Dak Prescott? No.
Nope,
you got Dak Prescott. Do you need Joe Burrow? No. So, do we drop Pierce to add a guy we're not going to play? Do we drop Burrow? Because we mentioned trades, and I guess some people still can trade, which is weird to me. Trade deadlines in all my leagues are long past. But what do you do if you've got Joe Burrow? I was talking to someone in Discord this morning, Armando, And they're like, well, I picked him up, and who's your other quarterback? Jalen Hurts. Well, you never start. Like, what? I tried to trade him to the guy that needed him, but he wouldn't because he knew I was just going to drop him. I'm like, yeah, because you're wasting a roster spot on a guy you'll never play. Who is Joe Burrow the rest of the season, and what would you do for Titan here?
So this is what I would do. If you don't need to, because in a lot of these leagues, you don't necessarily need to move anyone off IR unless you're going to play him or you want to just add him to the bench. I would leave Joe Burrow on IR. I would see how he looks this weekend, kind of gauge, right, where he's at. Dak Prescott is a top 10 quarterback, all right, in fantasy. He's actually, I pulled up the rankings while you pulled up this question. He's actually ranked ahead of Joe Burrow this week, okay? So I would just ride out Dak Prescott this week and reevaluate the situation next week because you don't need to start Joe Burrow this week. If you have Joe Burrow, it really depends on who your other option is at the quarterback position on whether you want to start him or not this week. Like that would be my approach. If you've been rolling with someone like, let's say Trevor Lawrence or you've been Sam Darnold, sure. At that point, yeah, we maybe want to take the risk on Joe Burrow. At that point, you're dropping that quarterback. But if you have one of the top guys, like you mentioned, Jalen Hurts, if you're in that situation, just leave Burrow on the IR. Just leave Burrow on the IR. See what happens this Thanksgiving Day. See how he looks. And then go from there, right? Expectations are he's going to play this week, and he's saying he's going to play this week, but you just don't know until it's official and he's on that field. Like that, I hate to sound like that, but that's the way I approach these things. Until I see it, I need to see it first, right? Like we see this a lot where it's yeah, and all of a sudden, no. It's like, oh, well, what happened? A setback. That's what happened. So I would not make any moves right now.
Brandon Ayuk was going to be back with certainty by week 7 at the absolute latest.
Correct.
Now he's not going to play a single snap, it looks like, for the Niners this year, so that happens. Jack B's got a question here. I don't know why. I don't think anyone's figured it out with the last day and a half here. Why the Chiefs gave the ball 30 times on the ground to Kareem Hunt. I don't know. They won the football game. They gave it to him 30 times. The bottom line is the Chiefs' running game is not effective, right? Hunt is getting in the end zone at the goal line. He's getting 2 yards and 6 inches from the 2-yard line and getting a touchdown, right? It's not a good group. Pacheco has a chance to return this week. Obviously, Rashad Smith is involved a little bit, at least as the pass catcher. They've got Elijah Mitchell hanging around. Jack asked about Dameon Pierce, who was added by the Chiefs this week. Good add by the Chiefs, gives them some depth, all that kind of stuff. I don't think this means anything. I don't think Pierce is going to be – I'd be surprised if Pierce is active. I still think they look at Pacheco as ahead of Pierce. I think if Pacheco plays this week, it's back to 10 touches for him and 10 touches for Hunt. So I'm just not interested in this backfield with the Chiefs. How do you see the whole scenario, Armando?
I would only be looking at Pierce in very deep leagues, right? Like I'm talking about a huge, like deep, like not 16. That's not deep enough. Like I'm talking about very deep leagues. You really don't know what the intention is. I think it's a good depth piece, like you mentioned, like just kind of add another body there if they need someone that they can count on down the stretch. This might mean where they're at with Pacheco, right? Like, yeah, he's potentially returning, but I've read that he could play with that brace that he's been wearing in the knee. So, like, maybe they're concerned about a potential setback and they're just preparing themselves for, if a setback happens. I'm not overly interested in this backfield, like you said. I think that you're going to see a committee. We saw that when all of them were healthy. It really was not a backfield that we can trust on a weekly basis. It was very touchdown dependent, touchdown reliant. So for me, I think this is just one of those situations where you get a running back that has had success in the league. You have a running back that's returning from an injury. He's going to be playing with a brace. He's probably not 100%. They're kind of testing him out. Last year when Pacheco returned, he didn't look like the same guy. Kind of leaked into this season. So I think that's where this comes from, Ray. Really do.
Yeah. Armando Marsal at fantasyguru.com. Armando, it is a short week. We're going to have all the stuff up over at fantasyguru.com. As you noted, the rankings are already up over at FG. I'll have my article out. You'll have your articles. Are you changing your schedule this week because of the heavy action of 3 games on Thursday?
Yeah, so we are going to be posting the staff picks. I'm going to get those up on Wednesday for everyone this week instead of Thursday. We usually do it Thursday morning. I'll have those up Wednesdays. I know we have early games Thursdays. And I'm pretty much pushing all my articles you're going to see a lot of my content going live tomorrow, Wednesday there. So a lot of that. And we got a DFS breakdown as well for that Thanksgiving slate. So keep an eye out for that as well. And then the podcast Friday, that'll be like normal on Friday this week, just like I've been doing each and every week. So keep an eye out for that as well.
He's Armando Marsal of fantasyguru.com. To get all of his great work, you can see it there on the screen. Go to FG, click that subscribe tab in the top right corner. Click on that. Get signed up right now. We got the football products, seasonal, DFS, wagering, all three aspects, everything we do for football for one price, one package. All of the college, we'll throw in college football for free. So you get the NFL and college football, seasonal DFS wagering, $99.99 the rest of the season. Send an email to support@fantasyguru.com. If you got any questions besides lineup questions, do not send lineup questions to the email account. That's apparently been happening. But support@fantasyguru.com is where you want to be. Happy holidays, folks. Thanks for joining me today. It looks like we're going to have a show on Thanksgiving. So that's my plan. I got the update here while we're on the show. So I think we're going to be here Thursday. It'll be me and Tyler Beaker. So we'll be able to talk some live football action here while we're doing the show. Armando, thanks so much for your time. Good luck healing. Have a nice Thanksgiving, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you very much for having me on. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone, and good luck to everyone this week.
He's Armando Marsal. I'm Ray Flowers. We'll be back here tomorrow. Justin Fensterman and Rich Mileto at 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, and then look for that show on Thursday. Thanks for joining us. 1 hour from now, though, head over to SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio and listen to the Elite Sports Show with Jeff Mans. I'll be on with him tomorrow. I'll be returning here with you all on Thursday. For Armando, I'm Ray. It's been Fantasy Sports Daily, powered by fantasyguru.com.